You mentioned zero beating. Is that on the frequency with NCS, or is that to get the audio levels right?
In this case, we refer to it as getting the audio levels right.
What do you think is a workable limit on the number of stations that are checked in to a given net? You mentioned 6 to 12. Is that a workable limit, or can you go up as high as 20? I guess it depends on traffic flow, but what's your thoughts on that?
Depends on the experience of the operators. If you have a lot of beginners, and let's say if you have 5, 6 beginners, they will slow down your net dramatically because you have to do a lot of coaching. If you have 20 people who have done this at least twice a month for an extended period of time, it will be no problem. And we've done
Good.
it. Yeah, we've done it because they understand that check-in serves a purpose. They understand that the check-in needs to look a certain way. And again, practice makes perfect.
Good enough. Thanks.
Sure thing.
Oliver, this is Jim Sugg. Hi.
Hi, Jim.
So just to make sure I have the whole situation in mind. So you are doing all of this on VHF. Is it all VHF simplex that you're doing these nets on?
Yes.
Okay. Do you ever do anything with HF in your district at all?
Yeah, gateways.
The gateways. So the gateways are HF. So is it a hub and spoke type of arrangement where?
No, the gateways are usually used for our WinLink weekly exercise. So people can choose to send it via HF gateways, via packet gateways. They can send even Telnet. We don't tell them how to send it. One of the things that we're really excited about you doing these kinds of nets in Hawaii is you actually have HF frequencies that you can run both data and voice on at the same time. We don't get to do that here. So for us to do the same nets on HF is actually quite difficult because we'd have to switch back and forth between at least 2 frequencies. And most, especially the entry-level transceivers, only support one frequency. HF transceivers only support one frequency at a time. That slows the net down dramatically unless you put 2 people on or you have 2 transceivers.
Right. Well, we're dealing with that situation, and but that also assumes that so in these nets is a combination of voice and digital. Is the basic communication to net control always voice, and then the net control says go ahead and send your message, and then you do the digital transfer?
Yes.
Is that basically the way it works? Okay.
Tactical communication is always on voice. We found that substantially faster. In fact, one of our operators, one of our really experienced operators said, okay, this doesn't make sense on NBeams. We should do the entire net digitally. And we tried that, and it ground the net to a halt.
Right.
Because it just takes so much longer to type these things out than saying KM6KQ, just to use an example. KM6KQ, this is net control, go ahead with your traffic. And they just sent their traffic.
Right. And so the way it works is basically you do your tactical, the net control operator says, go ahead and send your message. Now you're in a digital mode. Now you're back to, as soon as that message is sent, you're back to a voice mode. Is that correct?
Well, we're not actually changing anything on our radios.
Well, I misspoke. I didn't mean changing modes, but I meant just changing from digital to voice. So as soon as the digital message goes, the next traffic is going to be voice traffic.
Absolutely. And that's
right.
That's the same thing. We actually encourage that the sending station then contacts the receiving station and says, I sent one message, did you copy? And then they get a verbal confirmation. On a peer-to-peer net, it's pretty direct because you see that you sent it, and you can only really connect to the station you want to send that. But when you use gateways, especially on a simplex frequency like we did at Shakeout, they sent traffic, and we weren't set up for auto. They actually contacted us and said, we sent one message with a damage assessment and a photo. Please confirm timestamp 11:37, for example. Can you confirm receipt? And we checked, yes, we received 1137. It's been passed on to the EOC.
And just to be clear, that request for confirmation and the response, that was done in voice.
Yes, we
I
could
got
do acknowledgements, but there are two problems with that. One, in WinLink, you can do acknowledgements automated.
Mm-hmm.
And we find it a lot safer to actually get verbal confirmation because there's a physical reaction to it. That
Mm-hmm.
turns out to be much, much, much safer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you said, well, we got the acknowledgement on WinLink, but the other side says, I never saw it. We have 88 hospitals in LA County
Mm-hmm.
that are served by Ares LAX, plus 5,000. I don't know how they plan on doing this, but we've got 5,000 extended care facilities that have to come up with an idea on how to send the same traffic.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of volume.
Mm-hmm.
And so getting this confirmation on voice has been extremely helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And about so when you do these nests, about what is the size of the area that you actually have communication capability on simplex in your area?
Well, on simplex, we've successfully communicated as far as San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
But in our case, we go from Pasadena to Pomona, which is about an hour's drive, so 50 miles.
Right, and you don't have any terrain problems or any of that stuff, do you?
Well, we do have hills.
Yeah.
We find that, for instance, going west for us is relatively difficult, but we have found that if you use relay stations, if you have a situational awareness of where your stations are located, you can always find a relay station. And WinLink has this wonderful feature that is forward without change.
Uh-huh.
So you can actually, the relaying station can just take your message forward without change, and the other station, the receiving station, knows they're getting the message as intended, which is a big deal because generally the MAC does not like relays at all. They want the message straight from the institution, and that gives us a way to actually still relay and ensure that that's happening because you cannot change anything about the message.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, thanks.
Sure thing.
One of the things that drove this whole discussion, Ollie, was the fact that during the recent set, more than half of the time, almost all of the time, in fact, we did not have access to the 40-meter portion of the band that allows us to do data and voice on the same frequency. And that was forcing us down to 75 meters and 80 meters. And we didn't have a decent NCS setup to coordinate what was going on. And now, after listening to what you're saying, I realize that's key to making the whole thing work, is having the coordination.
Absolutely.
And if you did it on 80 meters, would be in the same situation that they are, is we'd have to use two frequencies.
Yes, but I don't see that that's a real problem if you have designated gateways.
That's pretty much, and this is how we ran it at Shakeout. In fact, at the EOC where KM6KQ, Mike and I were, we did not know how the guys at Sequoia Park sent the message because they sent it through gateways. And they actually switched between VARA FM, Packet, and Mesh. But because it went all through gateways, they needed to make sure on voice, and we used a repeater for that. So it's a similar situation to what you would have on HF. They contacted us on voice to make sure that we got the messages they send. And that coordination is crucial.
So what that says is if you have a gateway that you're using in coordination with NCS, that gateway has to be somehow in VHF range of the NCS station.
Yeah, I mean, or HF. I mean, you could do the whole thing on HF. Absolutely the same thing. You would have to have two operators, one who handles the voice and concentrates on that, and one who handles the digital. That's how I would suggest to do that.
I was kind of impressed by all these scenarios. I would very much like if you could share 3 or 4 of the scenarios for an exercise with us. Apparently you document them well in advance.
Yeah, and we actually keep them now because we recycled some of the scenarios for different exercises. So I can send you pretty much everything we've done. And you're more than welcome, all of you are more than welcome to send an email to Dave, W6JDG, on WinLink, Whiskey 6, Juliet Delta Golf. He's our WinLink exercise coordinator. And again, the exercise there is just to get people to practice using WinLink any which way they want to. People want to do it on Telnet with the internet, that's fine. If they want to use an HF gateway, that's great. And anything in between, anything goes, however you want to do that. And those are our official exercises. And again, it shouldn't take you more than 10, 15 minutes to do this, in large part because when the world as we know it ends, it'll all come together, and you need to know the single parts in order to put it together as a whole.
I'm also getting the impression that when you run these exercises, people may actually deploy their equipment outside of their home QTH.
Absolutely, we actually encourage that.
What percentage of that, how many people operate just from home?
Well, on Thursday night, pretty much everybody's at home, but I would say about 50% work off batteries, the way that they would use it in the field. In fact, it's kind of funny because our operators have really gotten into building Go kits and making them small enough. One of the guys who started our digital adventures, Mike KK6ECP, used to do this in the military, and his rule was always your Go kit has to either fit under the seat in a helicopter or on your lap, but you can't bring more than that. So everybody's gotten really inventive about making them smaller and at the same time increasing capabilities. And they want to try that out. So they actually use that. And I showed you that picture earlier. Those are actually their Go kits. That's what they use in the field. That's what they use for deployments. And they've got solar panels, and everybody charges their. The joke is a little bit that I'm now the DEC, and I have the worst Go kit of all because I give all these presentations, so I have to unplug and plug everything. So I just said, well, I'll just bring my cases and plug in as I need. But I can set up my station very successfully in under 8 minutes. And that includes mesh, VHF, UHF, and the computer and everything. And antennas.
Is that something you measure for all of participants?
Yes.
Asking them how long they can take to set up their station?
Yes. We encourage everybody to be under 15 minutes. If they're under 10, then they're excellent. I mean, a person bleeds out in what, 7 minutes? Part of the challenge that you have, for instance, with field day is if it takes you 7 hours to set up the antenna, you've just killed 1,000 people in that process. So when Mike KM6KAQ, who set up our station at the EOC, he was up and running in under 3 minutes, including setting up the antenna outside. And that included 2 mesh nodes, Kenwood D710, and computer and everything. And he was completely autonomous for the entire time. I actually used his setup to send traffic on WinLink.
Tony, are you there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did have a question for Oliver. Thank you for the presentation. It was really helpful. So I'm wondering, do you vet the participants in these exercises? And I assume you have kind of a closed group so you can make the exercises go more smoothly?
No, anybody who wants to come in and try, and we've had people, in rare cases, people stop by once. Usually when people stop by, they say this is a whole lot of fun and they return over and over again, but we're open to anybody who would like to try this out. And if they don't have any experience, we usually send them to our guides to be set up, because the guides have been really helpful in that everybody has the same setup that makes the troubleshooting a whole lot easier.
What do you mean by stop by?
By stop by, they call in on voice and ask whether they can send traffic.
Oh, okay. So it's RF, over RF, not physically.
Yes, over RF, because our nets are distributed. The only time we get together is when we have Fifth Saturday exercises. Then sometimes we meet at a park and deploy to different corners of a park. Or what we've also done is meet at a park and then deploy to different parks and mimic what different hospitals would be like. Or the other thing we've done lately, which was a lot of fun, was going into the Angeles National Forest and set up at different picnic areas. And because of the hills and the trees, that created a whole other set of challenges. But we did bring HF up there, so that proved to be extremely useful. I'm surprised at how much people actually enjoy doing this and deploying and having a fun time with that. Again, we're extremely welcoming to new operators. One of the feedback I've gotten from people who are only listening in is that we've gotten to a level on Thursday nights that people are intimidated to speak up. And we tell them, don't ever feel intimidated. We'll walk you through, check in, be one of the earlier check-ins so we can go through the check-in procedure and then come back and coach you while the others are filling out their exercises.
I had a question about your Go kits, and you say that you're using VHF and UHF. I'm sorry, VHF and HF in those kits, and they're setting them up in 3 minutes, or just VHF?
Well, the VHF is 3 minutes. We usually give people another 10 to set up the HF.
Okay, just curious, what kind of antennas are they running? What are they running for antennas? Loops, wires?
Surprisingly, I've had really good results with a BB7V. That's a it's a vertical that sets up in under 4 minutes because you just extend it and then you have to run run a tuner with that. Mike KM6KAQ, who loves doing these kind of field deployments, he has it's a Hertzian antenna. He's got one of these wire antennas that he strings up. It's like 60 feet long, and he has a matching box at one end, and he's used that very successfully in the field. In fact, he's sent WinLink traffic in the middle of the Angeles National Forest to stations in San Francisco, Las Vegas, and I think he hit Mexico too. So the faster and smaller your setup is, the better it is. And you can get really great results with not a whole lot of power, generally speaking.
Well, I'll just comment. I think everybody here knows that with the latest VARA HF, that we do have a monitor function in the software now. I've tried to use it myself on a gateway or two. The type font is very small, and of course, if it loses synchronization, the message does get clobbered. I don't know how well that works in NBeam, Oliver. You might comment on that as far as monitoring.
Well, NBeams, everybody can see everything except for when you're using the direct ARQ. And even then, you can kind of see what the other stations are sending. I mean, generally speaking, the way most people use NBeams, it's a broadcasting kind of function, so you copy pretty much everything. One of the things that we've run into with NBeams, FLDigi and FLMessage, and that was extremely disconcerting to us, was in spite of the forward error correction, we have sent files, CSVs, ICS-213s, where there were parts missing, and the checksum was correct. And we knew parts were missing because we could tell, and we had that about 2 weeks ago, where it was actually critical parts of the message that were missing. And if there's an inexperienced operator on the other end who doesn't notice this, and there are 2 lines missing of a life-saving blood type, for instance, or a medication that's absolutely crucial, that to us is just not acceptable. And one of the things we like about WinLink is it either goes 100% or it doesn't go at all. And if it doesn't go at all, you can find a different path for it. But having anything where there is an error in there that can be life-threatening is not something that we find acceptable.
I do hear, I don't know if it will actually happen, but it's possible that VARA FM in its next release will have a monitor function.
That'd be great. It's just, again, one of the ways we've dealt with that is on this laptop that I'm talking with you on, I have a copy of my gateway. And so we actually set that up in the field, and people can actually send messages through the laptop gateway. And if you hook up an HF, you can make it a tri-mode based gateway. If you do it on VHF, UHF, you can run RMS packet. It's extremely efficient, and then everybody checks in once and they just download everybody else's messages, and that kind of gives you that monitor function to some extent as well.
You raise another question. On your Go kits, do you recommend that everybody include the gateway software in addition to the RMS Express?
No, not everybody. The way we have done it with gateways is the same way we do everything. We do a workshop, and everybody who's interested is encouraged to build a gateway. In fact, we have 3 new gateways now since our workshop about 5 months ago, and there are more coming up pretty soon. So everybody who wants to bring that, one of the things that we were doing at Shakeout, for instance, we used an established gateway, but if that hadn't worked, both Jeff, W2JCL at Sequoia, and I at the EOC had our own gateways, so we could have done it. If Mesh hadn't worked, we could have done it packet. We could have with Mesh, we could have used our own gateways if we had lost our connection. So there were multiple redundancies. One of the things that always strikes me with WinLink is how extremely powerful and flexible it is. If you kind of dig deep and make it work for you. The Azusa exercise, for instance, we did both peer-to-peer and gateway at the same time, and that just didn't work at all. That was just, I think you need to make the decision, do I want to have peer-to-peer or do I want to have a gateway? And I think if you can have the gateway, I would always go with a gateway first in an actual event, but peer-to-peer nets are a whole lot of fun. And they're great practice for everybody because you also get to check the propagation to all the different stations that you can hear on the net.
Do you guys have any material on the GoKit stuff that you do? You say everybody's interested in building GoKits. Do you have any, have you written anything down or?
My better half is actually our GoKit expert, and she put together, was based on Mike's KK6 Easy Piece GoKit. She put together a diagram, actually, that she'll be updating because it has mesh in there and a tri-band, but I can show you what her GoKit looks like if you'd like. Yeah,
well, could you make some of that available to us? I'd be interested in seeing it.
Yeah, she's updating it because I just gave a talk at the Papa system. It's a large repeater system in SoCal. And so they asked for an updated version of that. As soon as that's done, I'll send it your way. How about that?
Thanks a lot. That's great.
We also have, I can send you if you'd like. In December, usually we have a GoKit show and tell.
Yeah.
So everybody brings their GoKits because GoKits are never done. They always evolve, and you have a whole lot of ideas and things change, technology changes. So we usually do December activity days right after Christmas. And usually you don't think there are a lot of people showing up, but we're always packed. And one of the things we do is a GoKit show and tell. So everybody brings in their GoKits and show what they've been working on, and you get to learn from other people and exchange ideas. So that's a whole lot of fun.
Great.
Let me get my better half's GoKit real quick, and I'll show you what it looks like and the size of it.
Which radio is in there?
Oh, this one has, believe it or not, the BTEC tri-bander. Let me tell you a fun story about that BTEC. One of the things it does is 220. So we were out at Baker to Vegas, and if you've ever been to that stretch, Chicago Valley Road is not the end of the world, but you can see it from there. And Robert K6YZF is an extremely gifted network technician, and he put together this GoKit that had an FT991A and can do anything from DC to daylight. It's absolutely brilliant. Everything's wired perfectly. It is big. You do need almost 2 people to carry it. It did everything except for one thing, and that's 220. And where he was stationed, 220 is what they needed. So he actually had the little old BTEC right here, right? On top of his FT991A, and we were just laughing about that because there's a tiny Go kit. And so here's the roll-up antenna and the power systems, the Ethernet cables, all of that. There's a 5 gigahertz node and a MikroTik HAP and a 12 amp hour battery. And you run this with a solar panel, it'll run till equipment failure. The other kit my better half has, because has worked on, and she's a lot more gifted in this than I am, looks something like this. And this is a Kenwood D710 with a SignaLink, all the power, everything's really nicely put away. And that's the one she uses on major deployment, and everything's super easy accessible. And, you know, we actually recommend people have small Go kits and have 3, 4 of them for different purposes. So you just grab the 2 that you're most likely to need. And of course, there she is. And by the way, one of the hams during one deployment at the Ronald McDonald, one of the hams who was net control made fun of her Go kit and said it was kind of the Gucci Go kit. And what happened was that they had set up an omnidirectional, a vertical, and everybody could hear everybody else except nobody could hear net control. And so Tron, who was stationed by net control, said, here, try my little Ed Fong roll up. And I said, well, sure. And that just plugged it in after troubleshooting, not finding the issue. And then everybody could hear them. And after it was done, one of our operators went over there, and he's got a lot of antenna experience. And he walks over to the Omni and says, what? Well, okay, it can't really work if you don't push the radial in all the way, because then the antenna is blind in that direction, and it happened to be the direction of all the stations. So don't underestimate the power of small Go kits. I think that's the lesson in this. And there's always this tendency to over-engineer. One of our operators, who's relatively new to the group, built this beautiful Go kit, and he brought it up with him to the Angeles National Forest exercise, and then realized that he hadn't programmed any of the frequencies. That made it very, very difficult. So it's the small things that get you. And that's the fun part of doing deployment exercises where you can't run to HRO or where you can't run home and fix it. A lot of people spend a lot of time getting the home stations perfect. The second you're in the field, everything changes. So we highly recommend get yourself in trouble, understand that things go wrong, and have a good laugh at it. And then next time, another operator, great example, perfect antenna, perfect radio, everything was set up, and she was ready to fire up the station, and somebody said, before you start transmitting, how is your antenna connected to your transceiver? Wirelessly? So apparently the coax, the coax was actually under the bed still. So, which was kind of an issue. And let me tell you, she'll never forget the coax ever again. So get yourself into trouble, get your operators into trouble.
All right. Oliver, thank you very much. I have to sign off here. My better half is going to kill
Management.
me. Yeah. So thanks very much. Really appreciate it. Very helpful. Very helpful.
Thank you, and 7-3s.
We'll be in touch. 7-3 to you too.
All right. Any other questions?
I'm sure there will be in the future, Oliver. It's quite a big undertaking. I had thought we would be talking about net control procedures, but the reality is it's the entire organization or technical organization structure of how we do what we do and how we practice it. It's not just, well, it's a lot more. We haven't been doing a good job of it here in Hawaii so far.
Well, you guys have a fantastic resource across all bands, you have great operators. So keep it fun and understand that you want to have a good laugh at the end of the day and say, listen, this was fun, time well spent. And I'm sure we will learn a lot from you going down, down the road, because it is really, at the end of the day, emergency communications is about organization more than anything else. This isn't about getting the last 1 dB out of it. There are two states: it works or it doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, you need to fix it. It's that simple. And that's part of the fun of it, as far as I'm concerned.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
How important has it been that you seem to have one most important served agency, which is the hospitals?
Mm-hmm.
And that seems to have been a cohesive factor that's drawn everybody together to really get their act together. Is that the case? Is that what's really been part of the success, or a major portion of it?
That makes our life so much easier, because we know exactly who we're serving and what kind of traffic they want us to send. So we can actually concentrate. The hospitals don't care how we send it.
Mhm.
They only care that we send it.
Yeah.
So whether we use mesh, HF, VHF, UHF, whether we use VARA, packet, they don't care. They care, does it get there, and is it 100% accurate?
Yeah.
And yes, that mission focus, it's a very keen observation. That mission focus has made our life a whole lot easier.
Good. Well, thank you very much. This has been valuable to me.
Oh,
Thanks.
thank you so much. And thanks for having me.
I have a question related to what Joe just said. You, all of your members in your nets, do they all belong to ARES, or do you have a mixture of people who might belong to a radio club, some to ARES, some of them might be an employee of the hospital?
There are not a whole lot of hospital employees, because by and large, their focus will always be their medical expertise in an emergency.
Right.
But by and large, we're mixed net. So I would say 80% of us are ARES affiliated, but we do have members of DCS. We do encourage everybody to learn these skills, because they are extremely valuable, I think, for anybody. One of our most prolific operators is with LA County Sheriff's DCS, and he is an outstanding Keith, KD6PYD. He has great technical skills and so on. One of the issues that DCS is wrestling with is they have to get all their technology approved through the sheriff's IT department. So they have signal links sitting around that they've had for 2-3 years, and they can't get them online because they haven't improved yet.
Mhm.
And that's one of the challenges right there. So he's extremely competent. He can do all these things and he can demonstrate it, but for the organization itself to adopt that, that'll take time and a lot of advocacy.
So I may be putting words in your mouth, but it seems like an important aspect of this is that we're teaching technology and procedures, and we really want to go across different organizations or clubs or whatever, and try to operate together as a team.
Let me phrase it this way. If you focus on a small part of what your mission might be, let's say sending ICS 213s and attachments, or let's say damage assessments, that is just, as a Latin phrase goes, a paus pro toto, the part of the whole, because the skills will translate across whatever traffic they want to send. For our digital group, one of the things that has come out of that is, by and large, none of these guys and girls care anymore how they send the traffic. They only care about that they send the traffic. To them, as long as it's WinLink, they can send it over mesh, VHF, UHF, HF. That's what they care about. You can give them any type of form and they can write the form. If it's an attachment, you can do it as a spreadsheet. That works just fine. If it's an ICS 213, they were just literally blown away at the EOC the other day when they saw the ICS pop up with all the information that they needed to actually generate a response that, and they were extremely happy that the Monterey Park CERTs provided that information live. It took no time to be transmitted, and they had a written record of it. And we use ICS 213s in hospitals. They use them over there, and any other form they could have thrown our way, we could have made work. And that's kind of that flexibility you want to, but start easy. Whatever you start with, practice that, get yourself into trouble, because you will find people develop this ability to then roll with the punches. They don't freeze. They don't actually just keep going, whatever it takes to get that message through. They will do that.
Do you actually have people in the served agency participating in some of these events, these nets, where you actually pass a message to somebody who might, in a real situation, be processing it?
Yeah, in fact, again, Shakeout last Thursday, we passed all the information that the CERTs generated. They gave to our operators who sent them via WinLink, and we actually forwarded that directly to the emergency manager, the fire chief who was in charge of operations, and the city manager. And they actually brought it up on the big screen on their end. And when the CERT said we need USAR in there, all the fire people said we could actually deploy that. So that was very, very productive. Yes, we do want to work in the hospitals too. I think one of the responses that we get most often is that people say we did not know this was possible over radio without the help of internet. It's a big, big argument for amateur radio and the efficiency with which we can send traffic and handle traffic.
There was something that you mentioned earlier, that you'd had, I believe you were running 1 or 2 a month of the NBeams nets, and that you're gradually phasing those out. We're faced here with a part of the community that believes that that's the only way to go. Will practice get that cured, or is there some other way that you found that you were able to wean yourself from depending on that solely?
We're not phasing out NBeams. We're reducing how many practice nets we're doing in NBeams. In large part because NBeams is, like in your case, is the digital transmission software of choice for DCS, so the county sheriffs. And if we want to maintain interoperability with them, what we found is by having, and we've alternated for about 2 years between NBeams and WinLink. So we were split 50-50. What we found is we've been running into serious issues with NBeams that actually our operators found unacceptable.
Yeah, the errors that you brought up.
Yeah,
understood.
And I can send you the whole. I can send you because we keep all our logs for NBeams. I could send you the entire net, and you can actually see where the errors happen. And they were massive errors. They should never have happened. And that's, if you want to do information distribution, fine. If you want to do some simple outreach, that's fine. And again, the example I use is if you're the sheriffs and you request 10 units and you send 100 accidentally, it's haha funny. If you're doing it with blood supplies of a rare blood type and you request 10 and you receive 100, that means there are 90 now missing from all the other hospitals.
Yeah. And understood.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
Do you, I forget what region, a FEMA region you're in there in Los Angeles, region
9.
9.
I think.
I understand region 10 runs FLDigi broadcast nets on 60 meters.
Mm-hmm.
Do you participate in a similar way on 60 meters?
No.
No?
Not as of yet. As I said, our nets, because we have a very defined mission, our nets tend to be very, very localized.
Okay. Well, if anybody else, let's see, it's almost 11 o'clock your time. I really appreciate your making the time available, Oliver. I'd like to continue our maybe every 6 months or so, we might have ongoing discussions and exchange ideas.
Absolutely. We're learning a lot from you guys. And I mean, let's face it, you're facing a lot of things that we have. Luckily, we don't have volcanoes nearby. They are in Central California and have been dormant for a while. But I mean, you do have the whole shebang. So anything we can do to assist you and vice versa, you and I, we've had great discussions, and we hope to continue those. We learn something every single time from you, and that's we really appreciate all your help and your support and your leadership.